reflects what you do or something that really is a reflection of who you are. My perspective that I shared was that I think in some cases, particularly for pharmacists who are looking to expand beyond pharmacy, that considering pharmacist to be a part of your core identity, not just what you do, but who you are, can be harmful in some ways because it can keep you sort of limited to this box of what a pharmacist is and what a pharmacist does, and make it a little difficult for you to see what pathways might exist outside of that box. That led to some other conversations about time and energy and effort, and how putting in a lot of time, energy, effort around any particular project can really make you feel um, incredibly invested in it, and can lead to this attachment, right? We talked about emotional attachments in that last video, but that putting in a lot of time, energy, and effort into something can lead further attachments that make it seem like you just are wasting something if you ever try to step away from it. So today I want to extend the conversation and talk about how you balance the pharmacist you worked hard to become, like the skill set that you worked hard to learn and improve upon and execute, balancing that with the person that you desire to be in the future. Um, One of the quotes that I mentioned in that last video was, "What got you here won't get you there." Kind of alluding to the fact that what the effort that you put in to get to point B isn't necessarily the same effort that is going to get you to point C. And I think that theme is going to float to the top again during this conversation. Before we dive too deep, my name is Megan Freeland. I'm a public health pharmacist, and I own a company called Stock Rose Creative. It's a health content marketing company, and we work with digital health companies and health education platforms to help them design culturally relevant content strategies. I also run the Health Professionals to Health Writers program, which is a 6-month accelerator program that helps healthcare providers learn how to replace a portion of their primary income through freelance health content writing. So really excited to be having this weekly Wednesday conversation with you. And I want to start by saying that, by giving a disclaimer, okay? One of the reasons why I can very easily talk about detaching yourself emotionally from pharmacy, or thinking about pharmacists as not being your identity, like not being who you are, but being what you do. One of the reasons that I can do that is because I didn't have that attachment coming into pharmacy. I came into pharmacy because I wanted to learn more about drugs and medications, with the goal of applying that information to public health. So for me, pharmacy has always been a tool or a pathway, like a means to an end. It has not been something that I have felt emotionally attached to. Quite the opposite. In some ways, I have felt, in many ways, at many times, I have often felt detached from pharmacy, especially when I was going through school, because everybody is over here doing this like specific thing in a specific direction, and I'm over here like, I'm trying to figure out something else. I don't know exactly what, but not this. So I will give that caveat up front. I've sort of come into this conversation with a different perspective because my journey started in a way that is different from many people's journeys. However, what I have learned over the past several years is that many people, even though many pharmacists like you have might have started out your journeys in a more traditional way with more traditional intentions. However, over the course of your academic career, or maybe your postgraduate training, or maybe your career, things have happened that have caused you to question whether the pathway you intended to start down is actually the pathway that you want to continue to start down. And so many pharmacists are now questioning, like, is this it? Is this what I want to do? How am I going to grow? Where am I going to grow? How am I going to get back to the core of the profession, or the core of what brought me into the profession, when I'm not really seeing that reflected in the workplace? A lot of a lot of questioning and figuring out what the path forward is. So because of that, a lot of pharmacists are now coming to the place where I already was, where I was like, this, I don't think this is it. I got to figure something else out. That just for me happened earlier on in my journey. And so, hopefully, I'm hopeful that some of my perspective can be helpful to you if you are a person who's now finding yourself in a place where you're trying to expand beyond, but are having trouble doing that. I want to ask for grace in that, in understanding that I'm not coming from a place of judgment or anything of that nature. I'm really just sharing some of the perspective, and why I think that I have been successful in being able to craft a unique path for myself despite being a pharmacist, because it's 100% possible for you as well, whatever that path is that you're interested in creating. All right, now that all the prefacing is out of the way, um, I understand. I have experienced times when I've put so much effort into something, and I think about all the blood, sweat, and tears, right? All the effort that you put into this thing, and then you come to this point where you feel like, I don't know if all the time and energy and effort that I put into this is actually worth me staying in this exact spot. Like, I get that I worked really hard to be here. I sacrificed a lot to be here. I gave up a lot to be here. My family, my loved ones, my friends, they gave up a lot for me to be here. And if I decide to go down a different path, or if you decide to just let go of it altogether, not even like an adjacent path, but like something totally different, completely different, am I wasting all of that? Am I wasting all of the money, the hundreds of thousands of dollars? Am I wasting all of the hours of time? Am I wasting the lost wages? I could have been working, but I was in school. Am I wasting all of the weekends, the nights, the family events, the holidays that I didn't get to spend with my friends and loved ones because I was studying, or because I was working, or because I was training? Am I wasting all of that, all of the effort, all of the things that I worked hard to do because I was trying to reach this goal of being a pharmacist, or insert whatever kind of healthcare provider you are? Does that all go to waste if I decide to go in a different direction altogether, or to shift paths a little bit? And that can be scary. That is like a scary point to come to when you are questioning um, how your future will go based on everything that you've been through in your past. Because on one level, you already know, you already feel in your heart that you're being drawn elsewhere, but your body is telling you, girl, we have been through a lot. We had a lot of late nights, we had a lot of stressful days, we had a lot of XYZ, insert all the things, and your body remembers that. And so there's this dissonance between kind of like your visionary self and your dream self, and then your body and your brain that remembers all the things that you went through to get to this point. One of the lessons that I've learned in my personal and professional life that might be helpful for you to just kind of reflect on is, just because you can doesn't mean you have to. There are a lot of things we can do. There are a lot of skills that we have, um, that we can continue to execute on. But that doesn't mean that you have to do them, right? I can cook pretty decently. That doesn't mean that I have to do it professionally. I can, I can drive a car. That doesn't mean I have to go drive other people around. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do. That doesn't mean you have to start doing them or continue to do them. You can stop doing those things, right? Like when we were kids, if you were the type of child who always participated in different like activities and sports and stuff. I'm sure there were activities and sports that you did for a little bit and then you didn't do them anymore. Maybe you weren't good at it. Maybe you just didn't want to. Maybe, family finances changed and you couldn't. You could have kept going, but you didn't have to. And maybe you didn't. This is this is no different because this is like we're talking about a much bigger situation, but it's a similar concept in that there are a lot of things in your life that you probably worked really hard for and put a lot of effort in to be able to accomplish. If you choose to go into a different direction in the future, that doesn't take away those accomplishments. It doesn't take away all of the work that you put in, all the sacrifices that you made. That's still a part of you. That's still a part of your story. You can take that story, you can take those lessons learned, you can take those accomplishments and apply them in a different way. So don't feel like because you've invested X number of years into this specific path, that means that has to be your path for the rest of your life. At the end of my life, I want to be able to say that I um, that I really took my own goals and desires into account and that I crafted the journey of my life, the path of my life based on the things that I considered valuable to me. I don't want to look back on my life and say, well, when I was 16, I decided I was going to be a pharmacist. And even though I turned 23 and 35 and 44 and 57 and 66 and 72, and at each of those turns, I knew I didn't want to be a pharmacist anymore. I kept going because at 16, I decided I wanted to be a pharmacist and I put a lot of work into it. That's not the narrative that I'm looking to have at the end of my life. And I would imagine that is not, something that appeals to you either. On the other side of this, and this is especially for Black women pharmacists that I'm talking to right now, many of us come from environments where we had to overcome a lot of barriers. Those could have been personal barriers, familial barriers, systemic and institutional barriers. And just like we all worked hard to become pharmacists, we also had to overcome, in many cases, a lot more barriers in order to reach the goal of becoming a pharmacist. And so in this case, one of the ways that the narrative also gets a little convoluted and harmful is this idea that because you worked so hard to accomplish X, Y, and Z, and you actually accomplished X, Y, and Z, you checked all three of those boxes, you did what you set out to do in spite of all the BS. Because you worked so hard to accomplish those things and you got to where you were trying to go, now you should be grateful to be here. You should be grateful to be a pharmacist. You should be grateful to have the PharmD behind your name. What more do you want and why? So not only is there that narrative of, man, I worked so hard to get here, I'm going to waste it all if I go in a different direction. Now there's also this added element of wanting more or wanting something different, and potentially the people around you perceiving that as selfish, or the people around you not understanding how or why you could want more. And so for me, I'm a relatively private person. I don't seek a lot of external advice or input when it comes to making decisions about what I'm going to do. And a part of that is because I don't love unsolicited advice. I feel like if I have a question, I'll ask. And if I don't, then I'm not necessarily looking for advice. But I know a lot of people are not like that. And it is a tendency to naturally want to talk about your goals and your dreams and your wishes with the people around you and the people who love you. But you have to be really careful about that, because not to say that the people around you are, wish bad upon you or don't want to see you succeed. But sometimes people will project onto you their own insecurities and their own limitations for themselves. And it can be accidental, like it can be unintentional, but it can still be dangerous and harmful to your own growth. because what you see as your own potential is not necessarily what someone else sees as your potential. And if someone else is projecting their view of uh, your potential or your limitations onto you, they are in a way having input into the potential and the limitations that you see for yourself. And that's not always the most healthy thing, because only you really understand the path for your life, right? Or what you feel drawn to do, or what you feel capable of doing, or what you feel called to do, however you want to, describe it based on your belief system. The people around you who love you, they want you to be safe. They want you to be secure. And sometimes that presents itself as like, why you're doing too much, right? Like you did all of this to get here, like chill out, rest, relax. Or you're being selfish by deciding that you're going to take this time to pursue this other thing, or you're going to spend more money to do this other thing. Like you already spent hundreds of $1,000s to be a pharmacist. What more could you possibly need? So these are two ways that make it really tricky to balance the pharmacist that you worked really hard to be in the present with the person you desire to be in the future. And you don't need permission from me or from anyone else to decide to take the reins of your future into your own hands. Okay. But consider this permission to give yourself permission. If you need a sign, this is your sign. You have permission to give yourself permission to reflect and really dig into the professional path and the professional future that you want to create and mold for yourself. So, like, the moral of this story is, yes, you worked hard to be where you are today. And that does mean not, you worked hard to be where you are today. And that does not mean that you have to stay here. That does not mean that you have to remain who you are today. You can grow, you can evolve, you can shift, you can change. And whatever that looks like for you, that is your job. Your job is to figure out what that evolution, what that development, what that change looks like. So I'm going to stop before I get on another soapbox and start ranting again, but hopefully this was a helpful discussion for you. For any healthcare providers out there who have been aspiring to become freelance health content writers specifically, right? You have a passion for patient education. You're hoping to expand your ability to educate patients to a wider scale, right? You're ready to move beyond that direct patient interaction, direct patient care, and use writing skills to really connect with people, help them solve health problems, answer health questions through blogs and articles. That's what health professionals to health writers does. That's how I'm able to utilize my pharmacy background and my passion for public health in my career. And this is what I teach fellow healthcare providers, pharmacists, and beyond in that program. And applications are open today. So if you are interested in learning more, applying for the January 2023 cohort of health professionals, health writers, you can just leave a comment that says "write." I'll reach out to you in your LinkedIn messages with some additional information about how you can apply, and we can take it from there. For anyone who's thinking about any kind of other path beyond pharmacy, I hope you really take this message to heart, and I hope you really take this conversation to heart. And I would love to know like your key takeaways or your next action steps that you're going to be working on immediately after this conversation ends. Thank you in advance for the discussion and the conversation. And for anyone who's applying to health professionals, to health writers, I'll be talking